Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today our project is going to be a Penn Spinfisher version 5 or generation 5. It's got a loud noise in it. This is a 6500. If you listen, I'll be quiet for a moment. Very unusual for a Spinfisher. It shouldn't have that noise. So the first part of this we're going to do is problem diagnosis, and then we're going to take it apart, and if we can repair it, we will. If we can't, we'll make a secondary video if parts are needed. So the Spinfisher 5 saltwater reel, large capacity. Like I said, the 5th generation is now a 6th generation, and very reliable, dependable, and durable reel. So we got a grind in it. Let's see if we can localize that grind. I'm going to take this spool off. There's no reason why the spool should be the grind, but one never knows. There could be something caught under there. So let's take the spool off. You'll notice I'm putting it into a parts tray. I'm going to put all of my pieces and parts in there so I don't lose it. Let's do this again then. And we still have a grind. So it's either going to be underneath in the case with the gearing there, or it's going to be under the rotor with the bearings. Just kind of by ear, I'm thinking it's under the rotor, but we're going to go ahead and take the case off first. Give it an eyeball to see if there's anything unusual there, and then we'll move forward if we, when we go to the rotor. Okay, to take the case off, you turn the handle clockwise. This is a screw handle. If you have earlier versions of the Spinfisher, you may notice that the handle is a through handle that has a screw that it attaches on this side of the button. So you would want to make sure that before you go any further, take that, the main gear attaches that way, not the handle. The handle will screw off like that. Okay, so let's take those screws out then, the side plate screws. There are 4 of them. And let's take them out. And as many of you know, I like to take my side plate screws first and lay them onto the board that I work on, just to make sure that they're all the same size. There are occasions, and I think if you watched my video on the Shimano bait feeder, you noticed that one of those side plate screws was smaller than the others. And if you find that situation, mark what hole it came out of, either mentally or take a picture of it or something else. I always recommend that as you're working on fishing reels that you pull the schematic for that reel, especially if you're not familiar with it. It kind of gives you a step-by-step exploded view of the reel and what the components are that you're looking at. And I've done that here. I've gone ahead and I've pulled the schematic from the mysticparts.com website. It was formerly pennparts.com. But this is showing us what the internals should look like, how it's put together, and we can work off of that should we get stuck on any of these items. And if we need to remove, to get any replacement parts, such as these bearings, the internal bearings here, it will show us which ones and part numbers to go order that by. So I took these out as we were talking. There's 4 screws. They're all the same. So I can go ahead and place those into my basket. And this is what I call a half case. It doesn't extend up under the rotor, so we should simply be able to just pull this case off. Maybe with a little assist here. I may use a little razor knife just to insert the wedge under the piece. There is a little gasket there that keeps this reel a little bit more watertight. You can see that it's built into the case here, so you just want to be careful of that. All right, on the first look of this, it looks like it's been pretty clean on the greases inside there, so it doesn't look like there's a breakdown in the gearing. But I do think I recall that somebody did tell me that the customer told me that it may have been re-greased. I'm just going to take a quick look at that. Depending on when it was re-greased, it is a little dark, so I'm not sure if something is grinding here or up there and filtering down. But that's the purpose of this. We're going to do a diagnosis on it and see. I'm going to hold my finger onto the main gear now, just turn it. I want to make sure that we have the clearances and that nothing is getting in the way there. Here's some additional here. This looks a little bit dirtier. It's a little bit darker in the grease. That can usually tell you that there's something amiss. But as far as the actual operation of this, it doesn't appear to be too, nothing out of line or nothing obvious in terms of it being scraped. And again, we're trying to do process of elimination here before we do anything. So I'm going to pull this down to where I get the clearance on the 2 screws for the spool shaft. I'm going to take those out. And then that'll release the spool shaft and enable us to go see the rotor up top. I'm thinking as we're doing this that it is in the rotor complex, but I wanted to make sure that we just didn't see any obvious grinding going on in the case before we did any of that. This is, I don't know exactly how many ball bearings. I'm guessing at least 5. Maybe another one here on this crosswind block. It's a little tough to tell at the moment, but it's a well-built reel. It's kind of bulletproof. Kind of surprised that we're hearing a grind going on in there. Screws are out. We can pull the shaft out then, again into my parts basket. That enables us to take the main gear out. Well, I think we hit upon the same thing that the older ones have, and that is there's probably a screw on the side. Of course, if you don't know, you can look to your parts diagram. Nope, we should be okay there. There's no screw on that side. Okay, the crosswind block came out. There is a bearing on that crosswind block. There we go, took it out. Yeah, I didn't think there was a screw there, but doesn't hurt to check. There's no sense in trying to wedge anything. So I'm just going to put that side cap back on since that has no need for service of any description. Checking underneath on this then, again, it looks like it's been well oiled. Moving independently, I'm not finding any grind in the crosswind block. I don't like the color of the grease, so we will go clean that up. There's a bearing back here. There's bearings on each side plate. There's also a muddy look on this as well, which again, it's hard to tell without knowing the experience of the rail exactly what that is. So we don't know if we got sand up top and it's come through the pinion gear, or if there's a grinding going on in the gears itself. All right, we're going to go up top then. We're going to take this off. This is held in place with a set screw that holds the rotor nut in place. That's so that it doesn't vibrate, work its way backwards, and find yourself with a rocking rotor. But this rotor is tight. It's not enough there that can play. And then we'll just go to find the appropriate wrench. Okay, there we go. Get the wrench off. And this is, I'm going to guess, where the trouble is then. Actually, before we do this, we can spin this now. Yeah, we're kind of hearing it in here. Doesn't seem quite as smooth as it should, so we'll just go ahead. I have that tight, that nut loosened from the wrench before. Let's go ahead and take that off. Pull the rotor. Rotor is clean. There's no evidence that it's been dunked or anything. Go ahead and put that back in the parts basket there. And so then I think we want to look under here then and see what's going on with that. So we'll take the collar off that holds. There should be two bearings and a cross and a anti-reverse bearing in here. So we'll go ahead and remove those. And as you're seeing on this Spinfisher, it's not really a different technology than a lot of reels on the market today. It's, as I said, it's a generational thing. It's certainly been one that's stood the test of time. And this is the Spinfisher V. They're on to the Spinfisher 6 now. I believe that the Spinfisher 6's claim to difference or improvements is in the being further sealed from water invasion. And other than that, these technologies have been here for some time now. Okay, we should be able to just pull up on the shaft. Here we go. We pull up on the shaft. And now we have a bearing and a collar. An anti-reverse bearing. A ferrule. This ferrule's got some stuff on it, so maybe that's that anti-reverse bearing there. And another bearing below. And this one seems awful tight. So what I'm going to do, I'm just spinning the bearings now, seeing if I can hear any noises. This one seems okay. This one comes out of the collar. Sometimes if you have a collar, you got to pay attention. In this case, you see that there's a lip on the collar that sits towards the bottom of the bearing, so you want to make sure that when you reinstall, you do it that way. These bearings have a little bit of noise in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these bearings with some WD-40 and just kind of let them sit there. See if it's just some particulate in there that maybe can be moved out of that. And then we're just going to do a cleaning. We're going to look at this one as well. I think this might be the culprit, quite honestly, the anti-reverse bearing. So I'm just going to see if we can't clean that up a little bit as well. And it may be, if these are noisy, they'll be functional. But if you want to get rid of the noise, you're going to have to replace the bearings. These are sealed bearings. You're going to have to replace them. Right now, we'll just kind of see if we can't get away with cleaning them up and eliminating some of that chatter in there. Again, I don't have the full history on that. If you grab the ferrule on this one and insert that, you can hold the ferrule and spin it, and sometimes that loosens up the dirt and grime as well. This one seems to be operating pretty good. I'm just going to take that out and do that one more time. So what we're really doing is just trying to see if there wasn't something that was in here, and at this point it could be micro sand for all that matters. You know, the very fine sand that if it's wind blown, you'll see it. But otherwise you won't. And then all of a sudden it's like when you come in from a trip and you find the sand is in your shirt, or you just feel gritty. And that's just because you can't see the sand, but it's certainly there. Okay, so we've kind of cleaned these up. We've given them a spin. This one seems a little noisy. As this one. So we're going to see, I think these bearings are the same bearings for the most part as on the side plates. If we really wanted to, we could, I know the one is, so maybe we just pop this one out and put this one up top. See if that might reduce some of the noise. So we'll put this one up top. We'll bring this one back to the side plate. There's 4 bearings in here. I think they're all pretty much identical bearings. I don't have it going in square. I'm not getting that one in there for some reason. Maybe that's it. Maybe this bearing is out of round. It's always, since when you do these repairs, you're never quite certain what the causes of these things are, because you don't have the personal experience of fishing the reel. I'm just going to try one more time just because I'm stubborn. And These have to go in, there's no tolerances on these cases, so they've got to go in square. Or they don't go in. I'm just going to try tapping that a little bit. So, that might be the problem right there, is that this bearing is not in their hole. Okay, let's. I'm going to go ahead and put that other one up top anyway, just because I think that there might be the problem there. We'll come back to the other one. We want to make sure now that the channels are clear in these pieces. So I'm using a fabric brush here just to get any junk that might be off there. We did see that discoloration in the lube, so we'll take that off. I think I'll put. We will remember how this process went. This one went down. Snaps on. Ferrule went on. Backwards. Then this one sits in the collar. Collar was upside down on this. That's our stack. If you had any question with this one, you would go back to your video, check it out, and put that stack back in here. I'm going to reinstall the top on this. Just pulling out my screws from my parts basket just because I know where it is. Just trying to put the lock screw in there. Okay. So it's a fairly simple technology on this one. Now if you go for the 7500, I think it's the 7500 long cast Spinfisher, you've got a whole different technology there, including a kind of a worm gear drive on it, but all the other Spinfishers, regardless of the size, are pretty much the same technology as what you're seeing here in the 6500. And again, there's just a little bit of difference in this in the Generation 6 versus 5. I suspect that they've all gone to the CNC cut gear kind of thing, precision gearing. I think that probably is resident in this one as well, although I can't say for certain. And like I said, there's another level of water sealing going on in that one. So other than that, this reel is stood the test of time. And I have that anti-reverse upside down. So this is probably where you should read the instructions before you assemble a toy. I've done enough of these that I kind of know the pattern, and wasn't paying as much attention maybe as I should have on that reset there, but sure enough, it got me. So I think what we're going to have to do to complete this service is order another bearing there. I believe that one's shot, and once we do that, we'll finish this reel. But right now, let's just get this cranking to show us. Again, on the assemblies, this one needs to sit the other way. Okay, back in the stack, back back in the hole. Back with the plate. Screw. So a lot of times this is the piece that gets infiltrated with the sand, and a lot of times when you do a service, this is the one that most people omit the servicing on with the bearings. And as you saw from the way that this was done, it's just it's not a difficult thing to do. Again, just from my own reference point there, that schematic helped as I became short-sighted. The pictures I take along the way and recommend that you take are valuable as well. So if I really got stumped on this one and couldn't figure out why the anti-reverse wasn't working or why the reel wasn't spinning because I had it in backwards, I could certainly go back to this video and check out the clues there in terms of how I took the piece off. And all of those kind of add up to a nice, easy way and a good process to use as we're doing the reel. So let's go ahead and we'll just put the rotor back on and give it a spin and see what happens here. See if we've made any progress in noise reduction. Now a lot of folks are probably looking and trying to figure out why I haven't lubed the bearings at this point. And right now I've got oil soaked on there from that WD-40. Now that's a general purpose degreaser, but it's a penetrating oil. It'll be enough for what I'm trying to do right now, which is problem determination, but it won't be enough for a good servicing of this reel. You'll want to use reel oil. I use a Penn reel oil or a Reel X to complete that. But right now we just want to see if this makes a difference, and if it does, then we'll go ahead and off camera again I'll take this off. I'll re-lube those bearings before I go any further. Make sure that the reel is properly serviced. Okay, now we're going to go up top with the rotor. Just sits on top. The rotor's nut goes on. And then we're going to give it a spin and see if we've made a difference here. Oh, that's much smoother. So that's it. There was some junk, and it's probably this bearing. By all means, I'm going to guess that's the bearing issue. But there's no noise whatsoever coming out of this, and that again is just running with a WD-40 as the basis there. So so that's what this video is about. It's about problem diagnosis and about just process of elimination. So let's just go back over for a moment what we did here. The first thing we did on this was we took the spool off, and we did that so that we could determine whether there was any issue that was going on that was spool related. When it's all process of elimination. We got to that point and we realized that's not where the problem is. We did a visual inspection of the gears, and they appeared to be okay, although there was some contamination in the grease that could have been coming from something that was being ground down up there. But it didn't appear that there was anything off alignment or chewed up or scarred in any way there. So we went up top under the rotor. When we went up top under the rotor, the only pieces that are under there are the bearings. So we wanted to make sure that that the bearings operated properly. When we did that, we found that this one's got a lot of noise in it, and it seems like maybe it's even out of round now because it's not fitting into the case easily. But I can hear it. I can hear the scrape in this as I just do this right now. So it's probably been reduced to this bearing. So we swapped out the one on the side plate, which is an identical bearing. We know that because we took the parts case here, and we see the 20A belongs on this shaft, but 20A also belongs on the side plate here, 20A, and there's a 20A bearing on this side as well somewhere. So the bearings are right, 20A, 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 they're interchangeable. So that's what we did. We changed them out, and now we've got a very quiet operating up top rotor. We're going to go ahead and order the bearing for below, and when that's done, we'll reassemble this reel and get it back to the customer for some nice quiet fishing. So I hope that's helped you with the process as well as problem identification. And I've been sharing these with you for about a year now. And I don't. The purpose of this is really, it's about education, about showing you ways to work on your reels. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like it, and if you want to see more, please subscribe. Thank you. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Okay, this is Dennis again. It's a different day, and the exciting conclusion. So I ordered a replacement bearing for the reel, which we determined this one is somehow sanded or corrupted. And I ordered the replacement bearing, and we're going to go ahead and reassemble, and then we're going to just make sure that that noise has abated and that this reel is comfortable fishing again. So with a reel bearing, I like to put oil on it. I'm going to use a Penn Precision oil and give that a nice little welcome to the reel bath. And then you remember, I think that bearing that we had either got out of round or got sanded or something. We had very much a problem with this in terms of getting it into the case. We're going to assume that this one's just going to kind of slip right in there. And this one just kind of slips right in there, so we're on the right track with that. Now we're going to reassemble. So we reassemble by going to our parts basket. And again, another reason why the parts tray works out so well. This has been a couple of days now. And if you didn't have these all in one place, if you had it scattered around your bench, you might be in a panic mode at this point, trying to figure out where did all the pieces go and try to search for them. All right, so we're just going to come back in here. We're going to put a little bit of grease on. You remember we saw some kind of gunk and garbage on the main drive, so I'm just going to take a moment to take a cotton swab and just get the rest of that out of there. Checking the teeth along the way. That was one of the things we did earlier. We checked the teeth just to make sure that there wasn't any evidence of the teeth themselves being worn down. And I'm just going to clear the channels on that drive just with a little wire brush. These wire brushes, you get them in dollar stores. They're not expensive. They generally come in a 3-pack. One is wire, one is kind of a string material, and the soft fabric kind of a thing. They come in all kinds of varieties. This one almost is like a toothbrush. The idea is just to get the dirt out of the channels, and you don't need to invest in any real expensive tools to do that. Okay, we have that out. We're going to go to the counterpart of that reel grease. We're going to use a Penn Precision reel grease rather than their oil. And so you do not need to use Penn grease on Penn reels. Any manufacturer's reel grease will do, so long as it's designed for fishing reels. And you want to just make sure that you use the fishing reel products because they are designed specifically for fishing environments rather than a general purpose grease. Okay, so we've already lubed the crosswind gear in the back here. I'm going to set that to the bottom. I'm going to put the crosswind block on. That crosswind block has been cleaned, and I've lubed it. We have a bearing on the end here, so I'm just going to put a drop of oil on that. Yes, I did switch to a different oil. This is Real X oil. It's, again, the same thing. I just like that one because it has a applicator on it. They're both fine oils. The Penn and the Real X and other manufacturers' oils are all fine. And you won't be disappointed. Again, the idea here is to use the reels designed for the grease. All right, we've dropped that all the way down to the bottom. You do that by rotating the crosswind block. Make sure you get it to the bottom or you won't have the clearance to attach the spool shaft. Just put a little dab of the grease onto the corner here and one onto the other side of this plate. We're going to drop that gear in. You want to make sure it's properly seated. It needs to be seated against the main gear as well as into the cross gear. And then once we do that, we can work this for the main shaft. There's your spool shaft again. It's been a little while. Let's just go ahead and take a little bit of steel wool, wipe off any residual there, and don't put a lot of this on because it's not going to make it. The tolerances are very tight, so you don't need to put a lot in there, just enough to keep it lubricated. And one of the things I hate about these reels is that You don't have the anti-reverse override. So what happened there, when I spun the reel to make sure that the main gear was seated, this crawled up and I lost my my ability to get that shaft in square. So just take the main gear out, or you won't get this in. Alright, so now we're back here. We've got the 2 screw holes in there. You want to line it up. I use a little pin to do that. Go to my parts basket to get those small Phillips head screws. You can do this with a micro driver, or you can do it with your regular driver. They are small pieces. In this case, I can use the micro driver. Again, another kind of dollar store tool. It's not expensive. They generally come in a case of 4 or 5 of these. I can't imagine that they're more than $3 or $4 to acquire. I've had this one forever. I think I initially bought it for my eyeglass frames, but they serve their purpose well. Okay, we've got that back on. A little bit of oil and lubrication there. I'm going to go put that side plate back on then. Nice. I'm going to put the 4 screws, and it's again showing the value that we have here in that usage of the parts tray, because even though it's been several days waiting for that part, we go right back in with the parts tray. We know where they are. Again, this is a good reason why you take that schematic as well. If it's not fresh in your memory, and if you haven't worked on these reels, you might at this point be panicking, because you'll look in your parts tray and see something that belongs on the reel and you don't remember where you took it off from. Now again, this reel technology has been around quite some time. It's kind of standard format. If you've been working on reels, you kind of know how those things balance out. But if it was a little bit more complicated, like let's say a bait runner, or I think I referred earlier on in this to the 7500 long cast Spinfisher, which has a different technology and maybe one you're not familiar with, you know, panic mode can set in. So make sure that you take that picture along the way. We did that on our videos here, but you can use a cell phone camera or a digital still camera along the way just to take a progress report. And you can also use that schematic if you're in trouble, if you forgot to do all of the above. We have a little bit of stuff here. I'm just going to throw a drop of oil on that as well, just to make sure that if it is salt spray or whatever, that it works its way clear. Now we can come on back with this, and we shouldn't hear that grind any longer. We got a beauty working there. Back up top with the spool. And that's it. So that's how we did a problem identification. We narrowed it down to what was inside the rotor in terms of the bearing stacks. And we found out that there was one bearing in particular that was miserable. Either it got out of round, or it got choked, and then got out of round. We knew that because we tried to swap this bearing with the side case and we couldn't get it in the side case. So there you go. That's how to do some problem identification, narrow down what the issue is, and then go find the appropriate pieces and parts, if it's not a simple repair, to go ahead and put the reel back together. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. That's the purpose of my videos. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for viewing. If you like it, please indicate it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.